Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey Seattle, Shop the Beat is back. Shop the Beat supports the economic recovery of small businesses, local musicians, and neighborhoods throughout Seattle. This program matches small retail businesses with local musicians to host free in-store performances during peak shopping hours to help increase foot traffic and sales for retailers and provide competitive pay for musicians who were significantly impacted by the pandemic. The City of Seattle Office of Economic Development is currently accepting applications from musicians and small businesses who are interested in participating. Apply for Shop the Beat at seattle.gov/economic development. Applications end December 1st.
Mga kaibigan, ito po si Kuya Bert Kawili.
And this is Miles Salvador from Australia.
And I'm Norb Kawili, also known as Norbcam.
Kung gusto niyo po ang latest news and events from the Philippines at yung local Filipino community, Phil-Am Radio po.
We play Filipino music and interview guests from all around the world.
And I'll keep you updated on the latest Seahawks and sports news.
Kaya always tune in, Phil-Am Radio every Tuesday, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And in YouTube and Facebook. Salamat po.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe P. And we host the show Lidline Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Midline Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Hi, I'm Paul Pearson of StarTime. Did you know that back in the 1930s, Rainier Avenue Radio operated out of a supply closet in the Columbia City First Bank? Well, times have changed and so have we. Now you can hear all the great Rainier Avenue Radio shows on our mobile app for Android and iPhone. It's completely free on the Google Play Store and the iPhone App Store. The Rainier Avenue Radio app.
The Earshot Jazz Festival kicks off October 8th and spreads out over 10 Seattle stages through November 6th with concerts all around the city. All concerts live and in person, and many of them streamed directly to your home. Tickets and information available up online. Earshot.org. It's the Earshot Jazz Festival 2022. See you soon.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
You're listening to HeartBeat Radio. I'm your host, Cindi Bright. HeartBeat Radio is a conversation aimed to take the pulse of corporate America. Opportunities for people of color, we're getting lost in the shuffle of change. I'm that provocateur of change. The hearts of corporate America are addressed. Access and opportunities will be accelerated for all people. Through HeartBeat Radio, you will gain a deeper understanding of what is necessary for change.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to HeartBeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright. Well, we're here. We're at elections. Ballots are out. Let me just state, November 8th is not the first day to vote. It's the last day to vote. Your ballots are out now, so we're going to talk about elections again tonight. There's a shocker for you. Before I go into a few of my comments that I wanted to make, I'm going to show a clip of Pastor Jamal Bryant's sermon on Sunday, so you can get a feel for where I'm at today. Let's just show that to all of you to begin with.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the Republican Party of Georgia moved Herschel Walker from Texas to Georgia so that he could run for Senate, it's because change was taking too fast in the post-antebellum South. The state had been flipped blue, and there are some principalities that were not prepared for a black man and a Jewish man to go to Senate at the exact same time. So they figured that they would delude us by picking somebody who they thought would in fact represent us better with a football than with a degree in philosophy. They thought we were so slow, that we were so stupid, that we would elect the lowest caricature of a stereotypical broken black man as opposed to somebody who is educated and erudite and focused. Y'all ain't ready for me today. Since Herschel Walker was 16 years old, white men been telling him what to do, telling him what school to go to, where to live, where to eat, where to buy a house, where to run, where to sit down, where to sleep, where to pay for abortions, where to buy a gun. And you think they not gonna tell him how to vote? In 2022, we don't need a walker, we need a runner. We need somebody who gonna run and tell the truth about January 6th. We need somebody who gonna run and push for the cancellation of student loan debts. We need somebody who gonna run and make the former president respond to a subpoena. We don't need a walker, we need somebody who will be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding, knowing that your labor is not in vain. Georgia, I need you to know the slave Negroes y'all are used to don't live here no more. We can think for ourselves, function for ourselves, and vote for ourselves. Why? Because we don't need a walker.
Woo-hoo! Did you think you were coming to church tonight? That sermon is so important. We are here, and I'm going to re-emphasize several things tonight. Let's bring Joy in with me as I give some of these comments. You know you were going to come to church tonight. Look, we are at an incredibly pivotal point. Joy and I were reviewing statistics before we came on air this evening, looking at voter turnout, which elections we need to pay attention to. We've been highlighting over the course of the last few months the primary candidates. We are going to have Representative Debra Entenman here in the 47th district. We're going to talk to you a little bit about the 47th again tonight before we bring her on. But this is a moment that we absolutely cannot afford to not have ourselves, our families, our children. There is so much on the line right now that the numbers, the data that shows the statistics around voter turnout, Washington State is better than most. I think I saw that we're third in the country with voter turnout, which is not that great. However, what I did get a statistic on is that 100,000 more women showed up in the primary here in Washington State this past primary season. So we all know it's got to be us as women. We got to do all of this, but we need to make sure. So I can't overstate that tonight. We have to vote. My ballot is in. Joy, is your ballot in?
My ballot is in. You said it's a moment. It's also a movement. It's a movement that says we are here, just like Pastor said. We are here. We will not be fooled. We have our own brains, our own vote. This is the time to do it. Today, tomorrow. Get those ballots in.
Important to show, the Herschel, we don't need walkers, we need runners, and why the 47th district is important for us to pay attention to, because we do have a Black male Republican running in that district as well. And look, anybody who has attached themselves to the Republican Party in today's world and is going to vote red is problematic to us. I don't care how you cut it. I don't care what they say that their policies are.
Women, to the environment, to the I don't care that he was on the school board, to the educational system for our children, to jobs, to creation of jobs, to our economy. They are only going to vote, and I mean the Republican Party, they are only going to vote for themselves. For themselves. They do not have the greater good in their brain as something we have to work for. And it's not of service. It's not a service brain. It's not a service to them. It is something that we need to do to take power. Forget that.
Let's just talk about what just happened this week with, I even hate saying this person's name, but what's happening is important to pay attention to. The fact that Elon Musk completed the purchase of Twitter, and within the first, pardon me?
I canceled my subscription.
So, but within the first 12 hours, there was a 500% increase in hate speech that's been tweeted out. The first one is the N word, so you know, right? This far right, all the racial slurs, the Nazi memes, there was so much hatred spewed, and we all know. Look, I continue to say this, that I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist. And here are the real things. We have already entered a civil war. If you look at the stages of war, we're in it, right? When there is a coup, when there is an attempt to overthrow the government, when the media is being controlled, when you look at the Black voices who have been on air are all being diluted and taken away, censoring speech, controlling, trying to kill, going in, Speaker of the House, tried to get her during the invasion, now going after her husband, right? Violence has already erupted. The media censoring has already been affected. We are entering this next phase, and this election next week is going to unleash and unravel some things. And I think in ways that we haven't seen before. We need to take over every seat that is going on that is up for grabs right now, or needing to be converted. It's an important race. You can't our King County prosecuting race. Lisa Mannion, we must support people who are not trying to police and lock everybody. We must get out and vote. And I'm frustrated over watching within my own family, the lack of interest in, I know the younger people are not. I look at who's listening to this show. So the younger demographic is not paying attention to politics.
Because it's not sexy. It's not sexy. But you know what? What's important is your future. And if you have people who are damaging to your future, the future of who they are, young folks, and the future of their kids and grandkids, because I got grandkids, I got kids. But if you're not looking at who's determining and who's directing what's happening in our world, what are you doing? I sent my son's ballot to him. I was like, I'm sending this to you. I need you to vote because this is important. But you're right, that 18 to 35 group. And I get it. I get it. And I've heard it from young people. There's no one that looks like us. If there are very few of those folks that look like you. But I'm telling you, the AOCs of the world, the Ariana Presleys of the world, they look like you. They think like you. They are thinking about you. They're thinking about you, your generation, your mom's generation, and your grandma's generation. Those are the people we want to elect. Those people that are looking at all things, Social Security, job creation.
What I think is because, this is just a lens of, I'll speak in my own family, right? Like they haven't grown up with the hardships that necessarily they didn't suffer the way we're both older. So my son watched me suffer in corporate America. So he watched a different lens of the suffrage. He watched what I had to deal with. He watched me coming home just like spent over dealing with all these folks that you got to deal with every day. But he didn't live through the era of which my folks lived through. He didn't live through, right? My daughter-in-law's family, one generation from internment camps, right? And none of this started, look, the complacency and the silence of people right now is astonishing. They don't want to they don't want to talk politics. They don't want to talk. They're tired of we're tired of living it.
Yes.
So we can't afford to stop talking about it. We can't afford to stop keeping things in the forefront that need to be dealt with. And so here we are. I'm curious. I think, Joy, you shared a statistic with me earlier about so far, let's see, is it King County or no, in the state of Washington, we have 4.7 million registered voters. As of right now, 1.2 million of those ballots, so a quarter of them, 25% of those ballots have been returned. We've been doing around 40-something%. I was looking at those numbers. And so we've got a lot to go and we need more. And I'm going to make an appeal out to, my female followers and listeners, since we know it takes a woman to get stuff done, let's just get out there and drag our sons and husbands and cousins and all them. Let's drag them to the polls, make sure their ballots get filled out, that they are turned in, and that we get some victories here. Now,
yes.
Yeah. So
we've been doing relational work at my nonprofit organization, and that's where you tell 3 friends who tell 3 friends who tell 3 friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what I said the other night was, I'm going to tell 5 friends, and then I'm going to call them again and ask them, did they turn in their ballot? Those 5 friends. And then I'm going to ask those 5 friends, ask 5 friends, because we do not have time. Our environment doesn't have time. Women don't have time. Black folks don't have time. As Pastor said, what'd you say? We don't need a walker. We need a runner. Hello. We need somebody. We need to vote for folks who are going to think about all folks, particularly Black folks, particularly marginalized folks. These are the people that we need to get into office.
I started reading some of the comments that people were making about Pastor Bryant doing that. And, just to watch, I'm so sick of the hypocrisy.
Criticizing? Were they criticizing?
There were a lot of, we need to separate, church and state.
But they don't say that when the white pastors stand up in the pulpit and tell people, you need to make sure you vote for somebody who's got your same moral compass.
Or Donald Trump holding the Bible upside down, trying to speak religion to people. And here's the thing. So don't even get me going on religion.
I ain't even been in a church in 500 years.
I ain't even set foot in a church. And now want to have an opinion about a pastor who is actually speaking out to look out for people. So
Yes.
The difference in the religions is one religion wants to make sure that only white, cis, straight who are doing bad things to boys in the back of their church. Those are the ones that are considered.
Hello,
right? So here we are. And so we're all using our platforms, our pulpits, what we have to spread the message of trying to make sure that we get people out in Georgia. Look, Georgia, boy, I am just following that closely. Like that's going to be something else to watch to see what happens there.
I was reading an article about Black folks are saying that the Democratic Party is not supporting the Sherry Beasleys and the Val Demings of the world. And I'm like, hold up here. Y'all not supporting the sisters. Don't leave them in the wake. I mean, we know we both have whole different stories behind that, Cindy. When we ran, my story, because that was the first moment that we were like, your story was different from my story. And I was like, here's me. I'm like, just wait. What do you mean you got treated differently? Hold on a second, you know?
And I have continued to say, everyone knows, like, I don't give the Dems a 100% pass, but we have to vote Democrat because we have no other choice right now.
We do not.
We don't have a choice. And I have talked to several people who are registered as Republicans, and they said we're voting blue all the way down the ballot because we don't have a choice. Now, what we can do is try to help improve the Democratic Party. We can work to try to help address the dysfunctionality there. But that's what we have to live with. And I've heard many people say, if we just need a different party. I don't disagree, but it's not winning elections. And when we talk about racism, racism is about access and power. And so we have to try to help move the system that's in place.
That's right.
Even though it's not the best system in the world and it's not run by the best people and you have to be 80 years old to get elected. I mean, I see it. I get it. But right now, this is what we have to work with.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I cannot stress enough the folks who are voting against their own best interest. Don't look at the Dems as having the D behind their name. Look at them as what have they done? What are their solutions to the issues that are important to you? call them, talk to them. If you don't know a candidate, exactly, call them. Most of the candidates that I know, most of the women that I know are more than happy to have a conversation with voters at any stage of their campaign. They are more than willing to have a conversation.
And we've
But
been
we've
doing
got to stop voting against our own best interest.
right. And we've been doing that too with that's why we bring a lot of people on.
That's right. That's right.
So that the public can hear, can ask questions, can.
That's right.
We've had some good participation from.
We have.
People. And so we continue to do that. It's why I did the special a couple weeks ago with the elected officials. That show is about accountability when we have people in office. And so the questions I'm asking are the questions that we want the public to know. We want our legislators to hear about our concerns. And so this is a venue to do that, and we'll continue to do that. And our plan is to grow this show, to expand it, because we do get requests to out of other states. People want this kind of information. We don't, and so we just got to start digging at it at the grassroots level, which is what we're doing. Because
we didn't have this opportunity when we ran.
Correct.
There wasn't nobody with a radio show. Well, you had your radio show, but we weren't doing this on the radio show. It's like, no, I love the pivot that you did where you gave us that platform. I love that there in that moment, you were like, we can do better. Here's how we can do better.
So I had a radio show. People weren't really following me. I started this show in 2018, and I ran for office in 2018.
Right.
So it actually started before I decided to run for office. And on the night, the show used to be on Monday nights. And so it was the night before elections. And I was fired up because of all the BS I've had to deal with.
Yep.
That was an interesting show and it was a 30-minute show back then. And I think producer was telling me to censor my language because I was just like, it was such a horrific experience what you got to deal with. So I'm happy to support women who are people, particularly women who run for office, because I know how gross it is. I know how hard it is. You know how hard it is, how much work, how many hours you put in. And then we don't even know. We haven't been in the legislature, but we get hints and we watch patterns. And so we watch that we churned 2 of our Black elected people who only served 1 term. We're watching that. We know what it's like to work in these white supremacist systems, number 1. Number 2, we know what it's like to have to work for white leadership that believes that they're woke, but they're creating more damage than they are because they're not willing to step up and step out into where they need to step in order to progress some of these issues. It's why you have the problems you have in business, right? It's why, I say, they keep saying the statistic is if more elected women were in office, policy would change faster and for better. Okay. That's also true of having Black women in spaces and places of power. More things would happen, more things would get done, more policies would change for the better for everyone. I just can't stress enough that why is it
everyone?
How do you answer the question? Why is it that Black women do more about these issues than other women do?
I know we had that question a few weeks ago. We had that same question. Because I hate when people say, oh, you're strong. My friend just said this to me today. You're strong. Like, you've got this confidence. And I'm like, not always. I have my moments. It's not like we don't have our moments. But when we're passionate about something, when we know something is wrong and it needs to be corrected and made right, we are in it and to win it. We are in it for the fight. And we're going to make sure that it's done.
The reason why Black women are doing what we do is because we are the most harmed person in the environment. And our families suffer as a result of it. So let me say that again. Malcolm X has said, the most disrespected person in this country is the Black
woman.
That is a fact. And Joy and I could give our listeners
multiple
examples over the years of the crap we've had to deal with. And to my white listeners who watch, I know there's a few of you who have seen me fight for you. You've seen me go to bat for you because I've seen people doing you wrong, and I've recognized that. These were in my HR days and some of my consulting days. I fought for all people to make sure that people were treated right, that people were able to prosper, that people made equitable money to white men, that people got opportunities for advancement. I sat in umpteen succession planning meetings when women were being dismissed by white men who couldn't even meet the qualifications themselves that they were holding for other women. And so again, I come back to this. This is why when we go to get the vote out, when you see Black women on ballots, put them in office. They have suffered egregiously, and they will understand and recognize those supremacist systems that exist, that the conditioning of corporate America, so microcosm of America, they will recognize it easier than other people because the conditioning is so deep and wide everywhere that a lot of white people don't recognize when it's actually happening.
And well, there's an unconscious sometimes, but sometimes there's a conscious. Because what did I read? It's about racism, not race. So it's about that systemic rooted racism, and not just the race of a person. It's the racism. So that's coming too.
And before we, go to break here, race is on the ballot right now. So let's just be clear about what's happening in the Supreme Court right now. And let's talk about the fact that, affirmative action is on the ballot. And I have several bullet points I'm going to make about affirmative action. First off, I had done a lot of due diligence when I ran 4 years ago, because at that time, that's when Initiative 1000 here in the state of Washington trying to roll back the cancellation of affirmative action. At that time, affirmative action gives access to education, jobs, and government contracting. Those are kind of the three areas that it gives access to. At that time, in 2018, I looked at the data. And so it was 1995-ish when Tim Eyman put that initiative forward to roll it back. I think it was I-200. And at that time, the percentage, and I don't remember the exact categories, but the numbers I remember at the time, I believe this was in higher education, 14.7% were having access to higher education. In 2018, when Initiative 1000 was trying to roll that back, 1.7% of brown and Black people were getting access. So it actually decreased 13%. So when we talk about affirmative action has done nothing. The rollback of it has affirmed white people getting all the jobs, white people getting all the government contracts, and white students getting in. And this is not a statement about dumb, uneducated brown and Black kids just getting a pass because they're skin. This is about saying that you have to level this playing field. We're in a global economy. We're in a global environment, and we can no longer sit on our heels and pretend like this isn't important. And with Clarence and his wife are making decisions, we have a huge problem. So
he doesn't know what diversity means, whatever that means. You're a Supreme Court justice. What do you mean you don't know what diversity means? Really? I was floored by all of the reading that I have done. I was like, are you kidding me? Are we really having this conversation? But our three stood strong. But remember, this Supreme Court happened because of the long game that has happened in our government. Mm-hmm. And they were waiting for I could say something really bad, but I'll say former president, and they told him what to do, and he went about doing it. And now we have our 6-3, what is it? I think it's 6-3 conservative Supreme Court, who is now overturning everything that has been set into motion. And on the backs of our ancestors, the civil rights movement, the reproductive rights movement that black women played a huge part in. Let me just make that clear. Check your history books, folks. We had a huge part in the reproductive justice movement. So now they're turning back that clock, that time. We've seen it with the Dodd's decision, and now we're seeing it with affirmative action. And I truly, truly, truly think that this is where we have to start educating people, and not just during election time, but during, that's awesome. But during the year, the entire year, the entire year. And I'm like, people, I'm gonna say it again. Stop voting against your own best interests.
Before we're going to take a quick break here, let me just comment. I saw a couple of comments come up on the feed. First off, thank you, Eagle Brothers, for those comments. And to Josh Cook, who says, I voted and didn't vote for either cricket party. Job well done. I hope you don't regret
not voting
for one of the parties. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying we are just at a point now that we can't afford to think like that. But let's just take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back to bring in our elected. So we'll be right back.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And welcome to our live studio audience for another exciting edition of Did You Know? And here we go with round one. Did you know?
COVID vaccine is free and easy to get. You don't need insurance or an appointment to get your vaccine. Vaccines are available at many locations near you.
And now we're going to double the value. Did you know?
The COVID-19 vaccine is always free of cost. You can visit pharmacies, community health centers, and other health providers in your neighborhood.
And now for the lightning round. Did you know?
The Delta variant of COVID is a mutation that has health experts worried because it's twice as contagious.
Then for our finale. Did you know?
The best way to protect yourself from the COVID Delta variant is to get fully vaccinated. Get your vaccine today.
Find out more at kingcounty.gov/vaccine. Did you know?
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the Cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Nightbeat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Nightbeat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The Underground Surround Sound Star Time with Paul Pearson.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday evening sound sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
PrEP is a daily pill that can significantly reduce your chances of getting HIV. And typically, it takes a trip to a physician to get it. Now, you can visit select pharmacies, get tested on the spot, and walk away with your first month of PrEP. Plus, you'll also walk away with a $50 gift card after you complete your pharmacy visit. It's easier than ever to protect yourself from HIV. To find your nearest participating pharmacy, go to doh.wa.gov/PrEP now. From the Washington State Department of Health and Public Health, Seattle, and King County.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
That up in Saks, I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.
Welcome back to HeartBeat Radio and Podcast. I am your host, Cindi Bright. Thank you for joining us tonight as we are talking about a most crucial primary election season and our advocacy for Get Out the Vote. We are scheduled to have Representative Debra Entenman joining us the second half. Potentially Shukri Olow, she is a candidate in the 47th, and we got cancellation from Chris Stearns at the last minute, so he will not be joining us. So let's bring Joy in, and I'm reading the chat. Were you eating at the break?
How did you know that?
You have to turn your mic off because we can hear it.
I was like,
too funny. We'll introduce as soon as our candidates and/or electeds come into the back room. We will introduce them in. We're just going to continue on with the conversation we were having before the break about the necessity to get out the vote. And I had commented right before the break. There was someone who made a comment about not wanting to vote for either party and all that. And I, wholeheartedly understand it. I'm certainly don't criticize a comment like that.
No judgment. Yeah.
We just want to ensure, number one, that democracy stays intact, because we do need to have a democracy. If we don't, I don't know who the person is who made the comment, and maybe it benefits you to not have that. But for most people and our families, we need to ensure that we continue to have a right and a vote and a say so and outcomes for our families. And so we just got to continue. Hi, Bonnie. Let me just pause. Joy's over here eating grapes. I'm waiting to 8 o'clock so I can do grapes. So, yeah. So, important across the country, important to pay attention to these communities. Val Deming's race, Stacey Abrams' race.
Absolutely.
Lots
Rebel
of
Warnock's race.
Right.
Sherry Beasley's race. She's running in I think it's North Carolina.
Yes, North Carolina.
Yeah. So yeah, all those races. They're running against folks who are MAGA Republicans. So we know what that means right away when someone
MAGA money is going behind them. Which is why we can't. We
just
should
like here in our state.
We should talk a little bit about how the money works, because you and I both did fundraising to raise money for our campaigns, right?
Yeah, but you have to remember, who has the hardest time raising money? First out the gate, women. Second out the gate, Black women. Third out the gate, women of color. Because my indigenous sisters are having a hard time raising money too. But that money, that MAGA money, that's the Home Depots, AT&Ts. Let me see, who else?
Well, so I am not totally educated in this. I want to be careful how I say it. But there are PACs, so political activities. The PACs are able to put way more money. So there's limitations in primary elections and limitation in general elections. In this state. Yeah. I don't know what they are across the state. In this state,
other states there isn't. In this state, you can only give $2,000.
$1,000 in primary, $1,000 in general.
Correct.
In other states, it's different. I'm not educated enough to know it. But political action committees can raise money on your behalf and put a lot more money into the campaigns. They don't have those same restrictions.
Correct.
And so that is,
but by way of independent expenditures and coordinated work.
And because there's so much white wealth, so if you want to continue to break down systemic racism, because the disparity, the racial wealth gap is so significant. In this state, I'm going to requote a stat I've said on the air several times. In this state, just looking at gross domestic product spend on Black business was $1.2 billion last year. We have a 6% Black population, and that number should be closer to 24 billion. the delta of $22 billion will never be solved through minimal investment. We will have to do reparations in this country. Fact, you can't fix something that big. It's so significant. So the racial wealth gap is so huge that the whites who have all the money this is how they're able to politically win, because they have access to all that money. And so if we don't understand, I mean, this is my work. This is the work, Joy does political work, helping candidates and, get into, or at least standing behind candidates to help promote issues and, contributing to their campaigns, helping, people's hands are tied here in the state with the limited contribution. It's why the whole voucher program started in the Seattle area. But
I think people don't understand how much money. One of the most expensive races is right here in my own district, the 26. The MAGA Republicans want that Senate seat. They'll do anything to get that Senate seat.
And that is the gross Tiffany Smiley ads that we keep saying, correct?
Oh, that's congressional. I'm talking just statewide Senate race is, I believe, over $1 million at this point.
Is that Emily Randall's race?
Yes, that's Emily Randall's race. And then, the Tiffany Smileys of the world. There's just like so much money going there. Because they don't want Patty in there. Patty is one of the most hardest working women in DC. I saw it for myself. I'm not saying everybody likes her. I'm not saying I agree with every single one of her, decisions or votes. There's always going to be something that we disagree on. I think everybody would, get that. But she's one of the hardest working folks there. She's going to work for everyone, not just a small segment of people. And so we got to get her back to Washington, D.C.
I wholeheartedly agree. But what I'm going to echo that a lot of the general public feels that is fair feedback, is that we have electeds who stay in office for 30 years, and we still have a demographic of people who are still suffering at the same levels or worse than 30 years ago. And that's why we get comments like what one of our listeners was saying earlier about the parties. Now, I support
the parties. Yeah.
I support her, and I'm not bashing, or I don't have anything bad to say about her. But if the only thing we can have back in Washington, D.C. are 80-year-old people running, we have a succession problem, number one, right? We have a leadership problem. We have a succession problem. And there's that issue must begin to get addressed. Like, we can't just keep, we just can't.
And we know what they say when somebody tries to come in, because we heard it. We heard it from several of our friends who ran. It's not your turn.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't paid your dues.
White.
I was here first. I've done all this work, and it's my turn.
You're not qualified, Cindi. You've never held public office before. No shit. That should be the number one reason why I do qualify, right? Like,
hello.
And there's a huge. Oh, I think I swore on air again. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm going to get censored for that. There is a push that people say here in Washington State about wanting term limits, because once they get seated, to unseat them is almost impossible. That's why
I had somebody say that at the door to me, Cindi. I said, "Hi, I'm Joy. I'm running for the state to be your next, representative." He said, "I got one question for you. How long you gonna be there?" And I was like, "Oh, he's talking term limits." So I stood there for a second and I said, "That is a really good question." I said, "Right now I'm thinking 6 to 8 years." And he said, "I'll vote for you." And he said, "Why? Can I ask you why?" I said, "Because my husband's going to retire to Mexico and I don't want him to leave without me. So he'll stay as long as I have an end in sight." And he said, "The only reason I think that is because what you just said, Cindi, people get there and they stay there 10, 15, 20, 23,
and
30 years.
It's the only organization you can be in for that long, not be competent, not deliver results. Like you can't in business. I mean, it happens, but so that is a huge problem for communities that don't have enough
They
representation.
want to see results. They want
They
to see
wanna
money
see
coming
results.
back to their community. They want to see that you are not just there during the election season, but you are there during the hard times. You are there in February when the snow hits and it's snowmageddon, and you are helping do something in your community, something, not just during election time. And that is
Correct.
something I've heard a lot this year, is we only see these folks when it's election time.
It's true. Even though we're trying, through this show to not
To make that difference.
make a difference with that, so
Yeah.
that they're seen and they continue to hear from us, and we speak to them before elections, before the people vote. We speak to them right after they come out of session. We'll bring people on during session to give us quick updates. We have a great Black lobbyist, Paula Sardinas, who came on with us last year during session just to give us an update on what's happening, and just to keep the public informed about, the bills that are on the table. And look, Joy and I have learned how to follow bills and see how people are actually voting for bills that are put forward. And so you can start to see, how if their feet match their words, I guess is how I'll say it.
Oh,
Right?
that's good. That's good. Ooh, that's really good. You need to coin that. No, but it's one thing to sponsor a bill and be the leader on the bill. It's another thing to just take a vote. Because we got folks here that are like, oh, that was my bill. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Wasn't your bill. It was so-and-so's bill, and you voted for it. But don't exaggerate and say, oh, that's my bill. That's my bill. Are you co-sponsor? Okay, say I was a co-sponsor. It's okay to be the co-sponsor, but don't try to lie to the voters and say, that was my bill. And I did that for you. No, you didn't. No, you
What
didn't.
are some of the issues you think we need to have at the forefront in January for this legislative session?
I think, well, I'm going to say it because I work for an environmental nonprofit. So I'm going to say the environment, climate change, but specifically the Growth Management Act. We need to do some more work on that. We didn't get it past this past session. So I'm going to say definitely that. I think we need to go back to the table with the police reform bills. And let's find out why we've got police chiefs saying, my people's hands are tied. They cannot do their job. Why are you saying that? That's not true. Stop saying that. You were at the table. I asked the question to the legislators. Who was at the table? Were you at the table? Great. I want to ask you, who was at the table with you? And specifically, Washington State Patrol, various sheriffs, county sheriffs, police departments were at the table. So I think we need to go back and look at those, bring folks back to the table. Where's the common ground on this? Because we've got to get some common ground on this so we all can move forward. The other thing is affordable housing. I'm always going to say that, affordable housing and job creation. We need more jobs. I drove into Tacoma today, and the first thing I see is just squalor, because we've got unhoused people, living and sleeping under the overpass. It's sad, and it just hurts my heart every time I see that. So if we can start moving towards that, it'd be good.
Here are my top two issues that I believe we need to have in legislative session. Housing is incorporated in it, but there are two major issues I believe at play. One is wealth reparation. Like, we got to deal with the inequities in this state. We are on indigenous land.
Correct.
So we've got to do something around restoring BIPOC communities' ability to have access to money. And there's so many facets to it. I mean, I focus on
absolutely
corporate America.
First, we need to start honoring the tribal treaty rights and sovereignty.
And my second one is education, because the brown and Black children, that's their vehicle,
right?
That's their vehicle to prosper. And we've had the same chair of the education committee for, I don't know, she's another longtime seated person that I just think her time's up. And I think that her lens on brown and black children's ability to learn. Like, you just hear bias come through and things that is said. So, and I heard something. So I was at Representative Jamila Taylor's fundraiser on Saturday, one of her fundraisers. I've been to a couple of them. And her father, who is a UW.
Oh, love him.
So
Quintard, yeah.
Quintard Taylor, yeah. He was very powerful in his introduction of Jamila. But he said something that she's probably going to slap me for saying it on air because she didn't elaborate on it. So I'm just going to say what her father said. But he said that he was really proud of her because she's working on landmark legislation that is in the reparations space. That's all I know. But I was happy. She is the chair of the Black Caucus, but I was happy to hear that someone else somebody's picking that ball up, because we have in Washington State, we have the right elected officials, and if we keep the right people in the seats, we can start to pass some historical legislation, hopefully, to start to change outcomes for brown and black people. That is going to change a trajectory in so many ways for this state to do that. And so smart for them to be focusing on it, but I can't wait to hear more about what that entails and what that is all going to mean. But those, from my perspective, those two, should we deal with that? And housing is a contributor to that, because the ability to have access to housing, to own homes, is a number one way of building wealth. And
correct.
And so we do have to focus on. So I'll be fascinated to see what the legislative cycle agenda looks like for this next session starting in January.
I think it's going to be broad, but I think, and I those are my top things, and I think, but I would absolutely include the two that you said too. But there's, this is a long session. We're coming up on a very long session, 105 days, I believe. I believe that we will see some more progress in the positive way, but that's only going to happen if we send back the folks who were there last time, and we elect those folks like the Lisa Manions of the world, the Claudia Kaufmans of the world.
Let's talk about Claudia Kaufman. Let's talk about her race really quick.
Yeah.
Because that's the 47th. I'm not sure what's going on with our electeds. I don't have a message or anything that they weren't joining in. I do. Do you have a message?
I got a message from Shukri. It sounds like her grandmother may be ill in the hospital, and so she would have loved to have been on, but that has happened, and so
And I messaged with Representative Entenman a little while ago, and she was confirmed tonight. So I'm not sure what happened. We'll keep you posted. Legislators are slammed busy, and they're at the 11th hour right now trying to get.
Yes, they are. But it's the Debra Entenmans of the world and the Jamila Taylors, Claudia Kaufman.
Claudia Kaufman is running for the Senate seat vacated by Senator Mona Doss. And so, do you want to talk? Do you know more about that race? Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, it was vacated by Mona Doss. She decided to retire and take a different path. So Claudia Kaufman stepped up. We had some great people who stepped up. I don't want to forget Santwinder Kaur, who stepped up as well. The top two that came out were Claudia Kaufman and Bill Boyce. We talked about that the last half hour. Bill Boyce is a Black man, Republican. Claudia Kaufman represented the 47th years ago. And so she's back, and she stepped up to run again and will represent them well again. I truly believe in her platform. I think she's
the 47th is the Kent Auburn area.
Kent Auburn, Covington.
And historically has very low voter turnout.
Yes.
So they don't, folks are not getting out to vote. And this is too important, because if the Republicans come out to vote in that election, and there is a Black Republican person who would not come on and and talk with you. Like, and then by you, I mean our audience, because we had invited him. That's a problem. So we have to pay attention to the behaviors. Again, the feet versus the lips, right? How are they acting? What are they doing? And so, yeah, Claudia's race is an important one for.
She's working hard. She's knocking doors. I've seen a couple of canvases come across my Facebook about folks canvassing with her. So that's really good to know. There's phone banks that are going on for her. All sorts of other, activities. So she's working hard to get that seat back. And I'd love to see her. I expect to see her win and take that seat back.
And then the congressional seat by Kim Schreier is one we should talk about. Kim Schreier is, what is she? She's the 5th congressional district, right? And
so.
Yeah,
I don't have a federal PAC, so I always forget numbers for her, but 8th. Washington 8th. She's the 8th. Yes. And she's doing great too. I mean, there's just a lot of work going on. She's running against Reagan Dunn. Matt Larkin. Is that his?
Yeah, I saw some of the ads. And it's just, I find them funny because it's almost like they insult your intelligence, where they take clips of certain things that she said in other forms without context and then promote it as a certain way. But she's certainly, she's done quite a bit. She is actually a doctor, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the very few in office.
Yes.
Yes. And so, again, I was in DC. Hardworking. She's running between buildings. She's running from the floor. She's got a great staff. Let me just give a shout out to her staff, Murray's staff, excellent staff, Del Bene staff, excellent. So she's working hard too.
Well, we support them and they're all wonderful. We must start, if any of our Democratic leadership is listening to this, we need to have a pipeline. I know we have Pramila Joy back there. We need to have brown and black women back in these seats too. Like we have got.
But where's the building of the bench?
That's my point. Because what we don't want to have are the same people in. I don't know how long. I know Pramila has done quite a bit. Like she's very
great. Yep.
Yeah, she's really great, and she's very progressive. And what I like about her is that, while she is a registered Democrat, she is also incredibly, and I almost even hate using the word progressive because progressive
it's become a bad word.
Not that word. She's just actually successful and going after the very same things that the whites have, and so not a progressive person to just want the same. It's just a label that gets put onto, but definitely thinks more. Less conservatively about some of these issues than moderate Democrats do.
He's trying to push the policy so that it matches as we go along in time. And I love that about her. I absolutely love that about her. And I love that she recognizes the impact that she has on issues and her community back here in Washington State. And she makes a point of that. All of our congressional delegate work hard to bring money back to our state, to bring progress back to our state. And, I dare anybody to say anything about them because I got to witness it and I got to talk to all of them. And it's pretty incredible to be in DC and be able to talk to those folks and say, what's important to you? What are you doing? How can we support you from Washington State? How can we support you here? And that was our question to them. And we got really authentic and genuine answers. And I appreciated that. So those are some hardworking folks.
So we are out of time. So I'm
again.
Sorry, we missed our particularly our
elected officials. Yeah.
Again, but we understand because they are trying to get elected right now. So I know that that's a lot to ask. Next week when we come on, it will be the day after election. So it will be fascinating for us to talk about how we see people have fared. And so we'll look forward to.
And the results will not all be in.
They won't all be in. We'll get to see something. We'll have some data.
Yeah, we will have some data, but
yeah. Well, Joy, thanks for joining me tonight again. And to our listeners who paid attention. All right, you heard Pastor Jamal at the beginning. We don't need walkers. We need runners. Get out the vote. We will see you all next Wednesday. Have a good evening.
Row, row, row your vote. Row, row, row your vote.
That up your sacks. I favor black businesses. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yo.